have mandated myself on behalf of the convener, Pastor Shegu Olanikbeku, to thank all of you so far for the way you have supported this summit. You have been a wonderful audience, wonderful participants, wonderful people. Yesterday, Ambassador Gil Haskell shared with us the 4 major insecurity in Africa, which he named as food insecurity, water insecurity, border insecurity, and personal insecurity. This afternoon, Sivian from Innovation Africa added the 5th insecurity. I don't know how many of us that picked it, and she said it's energy insecurity. But you see, whereas these 5 factors of insecurity in Africa could be indeed profound, however, I feel that the challenge of Africa is beyond these 5 factors of insecurity. 2 powerful elements that determine the faith of nations, and indeed the faith, both faith and faith of nations, are what have made the case of Israel different. And these 2 factors are the factors of the covenant, a people that are covenanted unto God. And our brother Shegu shared in the morning powerfully on the essence of walking in covenant. So I identify true covenant as a very important element of prosperity for Africa. There is indeed a second one, and that second one is the factor of leadership. John Maxwell, in his celebrated classic, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, emphasized that everything rises and falls on leadership. And I agree. The clip we watched this afternoon could have been different if we had covenant, and true leadership in Africa. That would not be the case. But I thank God that today we're here in the land of covenant to discuss covenant. And we're also here in the land of qualitative leadership provided by King David to discuss leadership under the platform of Africa Leadership Summit. In other words, I believe that the path to redemption for Africa is by the corner. And this afternoon, we have a distinguished son of Africa who will share with us on the politics and political development, biblical perspective, and the Christian challenge. A man who has paid his dues in making sure that Africa ignites the right quality of leadership. He's a patriotic citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hails from Niger State, brought up by an illiterate father, as he told us yesterday, who raised him to be an outstanding academician. Born on 30th of November 1943, he graduated in 1970 with a BA Honors Degree, Upper Division, from Ahmadu Bello University, and there proceeded to University of Aberdeen, Scotland, for a master's degree in rural resources planning, leading to a PhD degree in marketplace systems and rural development. This he obtained in 1974. He further obtained a postgraduate certificate in education from the University of London and taught at Ahmadu Bello University from 1974 to 1986, rising to the post of professor in 1985. Somebody told me, or whispered to me earlier today, that by the time he became a professor, some of us here were still trying to be a dream to our parents, and eventually we were born. He served for many years at Ahmadu Bello University as a member of the Senate of that university. He also served the Nigerian nation with distinction and a mark of excellence. He was elected as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. At a time, being a Christian, people thought that it was impossible for a Christian to be a senator from Niger State, where he hails from. But he was elected senator by popular acclamation. His election cut across both Christians and Muslims. The federal government of Nigeria still appointed him a consulting director of the Directorate of Food, Roads, and Rural Infrastructure, otherwise then known as DIFRI. Thereafter, he served as chairman of MAMSA. MAMSA was a platform for grassroots mobilization that was brought in at a time that Nigeria was transiting into democracy. Thereafter, he served as Minister of Agriculture and Natural Resources, served as Minister of Information and Culture, served as Director of Field Organization for the 1999 presidential elections that ensured the victory of President Olusegun Obasanjo, served as Minister of Cooperation and Integration in Africa, served again as Minister of Information and National Orientation, served as political advisor to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, served as the Foundation Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, the ruling party that ruled Nigeria for 16 years until 2 years ago. He is the convener of the Middle Belt Leaders Conference for Peace, Social Justice, Security, and Development, among several other appointments. The gentleman I'm introducing, a father to many of us, is also an industrialist, a development planner, a strategic thinker who has provided a lot of solutions to many governments within and outside Nigeria. He's currently chairing many Nigerian companies engaged in housing, property development, building power stations across the country, pharmaceutical industries. He's also a farmer. He's also involved in sugar plantations. He's also involved, more importantly, in raising young people to positions of leadership. He's an active servant of God, a strong Christian who has held public office for over the last 35 years without any single story of scandal. He is indeed a model of excellence. He is commander of the Order of Niger, one of the biggest and highest honors given to Nigerians who have served their fatherland very well. I have the honor to introduce a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic, a minister who has ministered well, both to man and under the divine authority of God. Join me to welcome a father, a leader, a builder, Professor Jerry Gana.
Well, thank you very much, GK. I think our beloved convener gave someone to introduce me, to intimidate me, but I refuse to be intimidated. Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. Our beloved convener and his dear wife, the apostolic leadership team driving this wonderful summit, very distinguished delegates from every part of Africa, my dear brothers and sisters. I was really delighted when I was given the opportunity to be one of the guest speakers at this summit. I love leadership. I've been teaching leadership. I've been trying to show leadership because nothing happens without leadership. Leadership is so vital, it's so important that you reckon that when you look at a number of things that the Lord God himself got us to do, every time he's about to do something fundamental, he starts in raising a leader. So leadership is extremely important. And so it gives me a lot of joy to be at this Africa Leadership Summit. I was here in Israel earlier this year for another at the Hadassah Teaching Hospital, a wonderful place because at that time my wife had a health challenge. We came here, she received excellent attention, and got back to Nigeria with a brand new wife. So, so I have very fond memories of Israel and of Jerusalem. I've been here several times, but this is very special. Special because you invited me here to be part of this leadership team, you and your wife. The Lord will continue to bless you. Amen. For remembering me, the Lord will remember you. For honoring me, may the Lord continue to honor you. You know, you as a Nigerian South African. They are trying to take you away. We will not allow them. My dear brothers and sisters, I want to thank you very much for our friends here in Israel who have been very, very supportive, especially the wonderful brothers. I'm so sorry that I missed your submission earlier on because I had to go and work on my paper. You know, speaking at this time of the day, I had to reduce what I'm going to say because I know some of you are already tired. And so I went to work on my paper to read. So I missed your wonderful session. Kindly forgive me. I was trying to do the kind of work that I hope I'll be able to present this within reasonable time before some of you begin to doze off. Because we're talking about a matter that is not very central to a number of our concerns, but I believe it's important that we should look at it. So I count it a great honor to be invited to address the critical linkages between politics, democracy, the emergence of leadership, and the development of Africa. I'm delighted that this conference is holding a place where we believe we should be really linking here not only with the covenant, linking not only with the people of God, linking not only as a nation that Nigerians love very much. So many Nigerians love to be in Israel. They love Israel, they love this country, they pray for this country. In fact, some of them already hold conferences like these, huge ones, every Easter. They are here because of the tremendous place which the gospel has given this place to be in our lives. So this connection is very, very strategic. This connection is divine. This connection is because Africa's time has come. You didn't hear me. I say Africa's time has come. It is time for us to rise and to shine because the glory of the Lord will rise in every nation of Africa. And so we are linking with the right people at the right time. And we are going to rise, we are going to blossom, we are going to flourish, we are going to fly. I thought I can hear some Africans say amen. Because that is what the Lord is going to do for us as we believe he's preparing a number of you for this very, very wonderful conference. Politics, being the science and art of government, because I'm speaking on politics, democracy, and the development process in Africa, looking also at the challenge of biblical values and principles as we apply them in our various nations. Politics, being the science and art of government, provides the platform for electing leaders. Therefore, If a country has weak political institutions, such a country may end up having poor leadership, because the whole essence of politics, particularly within the context of democracy, is to allow the people to elect their leaders. Since Africa is a continent of complex diversities, the choice of leadership has also become complex, very tough, very difficult. I've just been talking with a very distinguished delegate from Kenya. I thought maybe the election they've just had was a brilliant one, but there are also issues. We had one in Nigeria in 2015. There are all kinds of issues. And therefore, the issue of leadership selection, how leaders emerge, is extremely important. And in a complex continent like Africa, where we have all kinds of diversities, I prepared a table, but I didn't think I should bother you with that. In terms of the complexities, the population of each country, the number of the ethnic groups in this country, all sorts of complex issues, and religion. So there are factors that are interacting, causing problems here and there. And so it is not easy to elect leaders, even in countries where you have maybe just one nation in a country. How much more when you have a country like Nigeria, where we have over 200 nation states, small groups that have their own history, proud of their own future, proud of their own past, proud of what they think they should be. And therefore, it is something that is extremely important to achieve. And so this is one of the roles of politics within our context, to be able to help us under democracy to elect leaders that will now propel the process of development. With increasing intensities of political, social, ethnic, and religious factors at play, traditional methods of selecting leaders which were used to in the past are simply not adequate anymore. Most countries have now adopted various shades of the democratic system. But for democracy to survive and be effective, there must be transparent mechanisms for free, fair, and credible elections. Elections are very central to the success of democracy. If your electoral system is wrong, your democracy will be flawed. If your electoral system does not throw up the best, then you will be punished by underdevelopment and continued confusion. Because the whole purpose of democracy is really to allow the people to say, now look, between A, B, C, who is the best? And they go to vote, and that vote must count. One of the problems we are facing in Africa is that the vote of the voter does not count. Sometimes before they finish voting, the election results are already being announced. So it's a problem. And so it lacks credibility, it lacks acceptability, and sometimes tensions arise because people can see obviously something has gone wrong. So I must confess that one of the things we are struggling with in Nigeria, and I spent 8 years of my time, very precious years, when I was more vibrant than this, trying to prepare Nigerians in the mid-80s and the 90s for a process of democracy. We call it mass mobilization. For 8 years, I was educating Nigerians, teaching them their human rights, teaching them their voting rights, teaching them how things should be done on elections. And when they listened to us, and they really tried to follow what we said, and they now went to an election in 1993, and the election was excellent. After the results were announced, what did happen? The elections were annulled. Can you imagine? Annulled by the military. So what is? I just resigned. I said, look, I've done my best. I've done my best. Because you now motivated the people, you encouraged them, you mobilized them, you taught them, they were ready and they were willing, and they lined up and they voted, and the voting was internationally recognized as very good. The results were popular everywhere. Everybody was excited. But that's not the results that somebody somewhere wanted. And we heard on the radio, yes, beautiful election, but annulled. And so we entered into a whole series of crises. I don't want to go into that because it will take my precious time. I'm sure other countries may have their problems in Africa. So one of the problems that democracy is facing in Africa is the credibility of the electoral system. So, the logic of an electoral system is very, very clear. If democracy is ruled by the people, for the people, if it is supposed to be, then every voter's vote must count, because all of us can't rule at the same time. We now elect representatives to be in parliament for us, to be in the Senate for us, or whatever other bodies you have, and then also to be in executive positions, either as president of a country or a governor of a state or whatever other nomenclatures we have. So that vote is extremely important, and so that our democratic systems must really, as it were, pay a lot of attention. Moreover, democracy under politics assumes equality of persons. Therefore, every vote is extremely important. It represents that person, the integrity and the importance of that voter. But you see, you know, within our own country, there are systems where some people do not believe that we are all equal. By their own philosophies, either religious or otherwise, they think some people are higher than others. And therefore, they cannot stand the idea that they come to vote and he is supposed to be in a higher level in the society, and his vote is just equal to that of his servant or slave or whatever within the system. And so they can't understand it. They can't take it. And so democracy is not even accepted. We suffer that. Those of you who are Nigerians, you know that there are systems within Nigeria that people feel that really they were born to rule. And the others, no, you are just good. It's only the Europeans, according to them, that came to save you. Otherwise, you're supposed to be perpetual slaves. That mentality has to change. And you know, this is where the power of the gospel, in bringing the integrity of the human person, the value of each individual to the fore, is very important. You know, other religions that we have in some parts of Africa do not raise the human dignity to that level. And so they don't believe in democracy. Worse still, there are those who believe that women and men are not equal. And therefore, if you will, even as advanced as some of the states in Nigeria, if you now put a candidate in such that is supposed to be of a particular, so no, a woman cannot govern this state. So why not? At this stage in 2017, but within the context of even Nigeria, there are states where you dare not do it. You will lose the election for just mere reasons of saying, look, it is not done. Our religion does not allow it. So there are all sorts of tensions there, so that the democracy is already divided, is already affected. There is no equality. There is no dignity. There is no credibility. There is no transparency. The kind of thing that will make the electoral system very acceptable. Unfortunately, we believe that the time has come, and some do think that the time hasn't come for us to practice democracy so that there can be a movement forward in terms of our development. So, in addition to these problems I've raised about democracy and our politics, there is also issues of the freedom of expression, freedom of association. Because if you don't have the freedom of expression and the freedom of association, you will not even be allowed to form your own political party or to express what you want, to sell your own manifesto, to educate people about what you want to do. And so part of what I'm so delighted that I was able to do when I was Minister of Information was to argue that if our democracy in Nigeria is going to be really enlightened and people are going to be, as it were, willing to defend their votes, when they vote, defend their vote, then we must have public enlightenment in such a way that radio and television stations are set up. And I thank God that during my time, I think I set up over, nearly 101 television stations in every senatorial district. They said, Jerry, are you mad? I said, no, I'm not mad. I'm preparing the ground for people to be enlightened. Because that enlightenment, that consciousness of the value does not die. When people get it, they will defend it. They will stand by it. They will be guided by it. So we built television stations, radio stations, and some people who thought, well, then, if you dare go and want to take away a television station from a community or a radio station, there will be the Third World War. Many of them are now determined to defend that. So I feel very, very kind of happy that I go to communities and they are really tied up to their radio station, their television station, they are enlightened, they are informing themselves. And if you leave this democracy to them, they will run it and do it properly. The people messing it up are people like you and I, the elite. Because we have other tendencies. We have other things that we want to achieve, which may not be in the popular interest. That is part of the failure of leadership in Africa. The elite, educated, enlightened, but not godly in their wanting to really achieve things for life. I left being a teacher at the university, and I loved teaching. And my students were excited with me. I really loved teaching. But on the very year I was going to go on sabbatical to a beautiful university, I wouldn't mention where, because I missed the place. That was the year my people now say, come and go to the Senate on our behalf. Me go to the Senate. Now look, I want to be a professor. I want to really teach. But then they tell me now, look at the situations we're under. Look at the underdevelopment. Look at our roads. Look at our water system. Look at this and that and that and that. Now, unless you want to be absolutely selfish, you really have to now look at that and say, now look, maybe I should offer. They've invested in me. Risen to a level of education. Shouldn't I now give something back? And so in 1983, I left academia and went into politics. Fortunately, these people stood by me because I didn't have, and that's the next thing I'm going to really address, the issue of money in politics. When I came in, said, you, university teacher, you don't have money, how do you think to win elections? And I tested what I believe many of us, if God is calling you into political leadership, because many of you are running away from it. Many of you, you prefer the serene, wonderful fellowships in your cities, wonderful things in your city. You don't want to go to the rough and tumble of politics. And the price we are paying for not getting engaged is to get the wrong people there with the wrong values, wrong programs, wrong leadership. And then things are wrong. There must be sacrificial giving. And so I went, and the people stood by me because I said, if only I could get the message across to them, and the message grips them, they may even take the money, but vote against them. And that's exactly what happened. I went around village by village. I gave them the reasons why this election is so important, and they understood it. You know, and I told them, I said, now look, they said this poor teacher from the university that you brought as a candidate will not win because he hasn't got money. They said, don't worry, sir. They were taking their money and giving me to buy fuel to go around. And on election day, they stood, they voted, and then they mobilized the youth to defend their votes. I defeated someone who, at that time, were part of whom they call the Kaduna Mafia. Kaduna is one of our major centers where there's a kind of a ruling elite who does all kinds of mafia-type interventions in the political sphere. I defeated him. He nearly lost his deposit because the people stood by me. If the Lord is calling you into political intervention, the Lord will call the people to back you. He will give them such a tremendous love that grips them. It will happen. It is happening in my state. And so I went into the Senate, and of course, the rest is history now. I've forgotten academia. I'm now in politics. And from there, I've been kind of forming political parties, because that is another problem. Whenever we form a political party and we're moving, and the military who are in power then think that things are moving, the first thing when they make a coup is to now ban all the political parties and the politicians. I don't know how many times I've been banned in my life. Thank God I'm still alive because God hasn't banned me yet. So we will have to start anew. So because the first election I stood was on the Nigerian People's Party. My mentor then was Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and the others. And then when the candidate, that one was raised, we now formed the Social Democratic Party. That one was raised. We formed the Social Progressive Party. That one was raised. We now formed, I don't know which one. Before we now came in 1999 to form the People's Democratic Party, and actually the party was named in my house in Abuja because of the commitment. I was secretary of all the small teams that went in. I was in the, look, God will put you at the core. You didn't hear me, I said God will put you at the core. When they are deciding what is to be done, you will be there. That's exactly what happened. All the principles that have to guard this party, all the major programs, I was the secretary. Therefore, if it doesn't really, as it were, rhyme with my kind of principles that are loaded within the Bible, I will argue it logically and they'll keep it out. And that party achieved, if for nothing else, stabilized governance in Nigeria, brought Nigeria back from the brink. When I was Minister of Cooperation and Integration, I remember when we were doing the telecom revolution, I had to go to South Africa 3 times to beg one of the main providers of telecom services. They didn't want to come to Nigeria. EKCI was my SA at that time. You know, we went, begging investors to come. I said, now look, this is where the money is. Nigerians like talking. Just begin to put it there. You'll be minting money. First time, the president then was a very good friend because he was in Nigeria for a number of years, Thabo Mbeki. So he made a kind of a way for me to be back there. I was on radio, I was on television, I went back to them. They only agreed after a 3rd time. Now, if you beg them to get out of Nigeria, they won't go. For the other time, they were asked to pay a huge fine. I thought maybe they will go. No. Because they are actually making, Nigerians love to talk. You are in telecom, you'll be making loads of money. And so I've been vindicated. But you know what? They didn't even give me 1 kobo share. No, they said, no, Prof, you are in government. That's how they treat us politicians. Now, at that time, I'm just trying to tell you an aspect of the powerful role of when you have leaders with vision to be able to do certain things. When we came in 1999, 2000, up to 2000, 2001, the total number of telephone links, the total of Nigeria was about 450,000 lines, less than 500,000 lines. By the time we were living, just in a few years after the 8 years of Obasanjo, it was about 84 million lines. Now I think it's over 100 million lines. Internet. Nobody was using the internet. They don't even know anything about it. I brought a young lady from Lagos, Yabate College of Technology, who had the domain registration of Nigeria. Then I said, look, you know, I don't know how to do these things because I'm BBC before computer. I was born before computer. So I said, you know this? He said, yes. So please come over. They fought everything. I went to the president and said, look, this person knows how to establish this. We're told is a very vital thing. It's going to drive a lot of processes. And therefore, under information, we must make sure this is advanced. I made her a director. The president approved. The other people were fighting her. I gave her a whole new office, new staff, a whole new department. Leaders must do revolutionary things sometimes. Now, Nigerians are on the net all the time. All the time. And they don't even remember me again. They've forgotten. But that is not the issue. The one who sent me remembers me. And he will remember you. So what I'm saying there is this issue of democracy really has to be tied up with the question of enlightenment. And I think once you get the people to be enlightened and the consciousness, reason, then it becomes very difficult to tamper with the electoral system. So the Nigerian system, for example, is getting better. You live in South Africa, you're moving on. Kenya, you are coming on, don't worry, you'll get it right someday. In other parts, as we move on. Distinguished delegates, the whole essence, therefore, of politics under a democratic system is how best to elect good leaders, period. Now, that takes me to the second part. And before I go there, let me water my throat. Now, the second area of my brief address tonight is really that when leaders are elected, they must give leadership. And so, the imperative of good leadership. Good leadership is central to the achievement of good governance. In fact, the driving force of good governance is effective leadership. So if your politics is poor or is bad, you are not able to throw up good leaders, then you may not be able to have good leadership. Without good leadership, no good governance. Without good governance, no development. Without development, it's the whole cycle. So the starting point is really to have it right, to choose good leaders. The nation of Israel would testify to you that part of what they celebrate is that the Lord has given them in history a number of visionary leaders, and they move the system so rapidly forward. Very, very important, therefore. Without good leadership, not much progress can be made. Leadership may be defined, if I were to quote Miles Monroe, as the capacity to influence others through inspiration, motivated by a passion, generated by a vision, produced by a conviction, ignited by a purpose. Therefore, at the heart of this definition of leadership is the priority of inspiration. So you can see that because you are the people of God, as Christians or as Jews, we believe in the Lord who inspires us. Who are the best people really to give leadership in many of our areas? We are speaking to one of ourselves. Don't make yourself scarce, because inspiration is very, very important. And inspiration, in most cases, is godly. God gives you a fresh idea, gives you a breakthrough, gives you a vision, gives you something that is very, other people may be able to see it. The Lord reveals it. As someone was sharing during the prayers yesterday, there will be light. Light in the evening, light in the morning, light of a vision, something great God is revealing to you. So leadership is about inspiration. And Christians stand a very, very good chance, because the Holy Spirit inspires. God is able to really, as it were, give us fresh ideas as we lead. And when you get my paper, I kind of went on to define some very, very important areas of this issue of inspiration. Now, but the task of a leader, particularly in the situation of Africa with underdevelopment, is to translate dreams into reality. It is translate programs into concrete action. One of the problems we face as leaders in Africa is that we may have beautiful dreams, but we do not have the capacity, the tenacity, and the tremendous drive to translate these good ideas into good action so that it can become programs that are beneficial to the people. And midway, we may even forget the ideas, forget the vision. And so, let me dwell a bit, therefore, on this important area of translating visions into reality, and some of the qualities that I believe will be extremely helpful to African leaders in their various settings if they really want to drive this process. The first is wisdom. Because in a developing situation, there are so many things to be done, and each of them is so important. Therefore, you have to have the wisdom of choosing priorities. Please don't want to do all things. You can't do it. There may be 1,001 things to do. Now, go for the ones that are fundamental, the ones that are called prime movers. Prime movers are those, when they move, other things move. If you have the wisdom of choosing things in terms of priorities, then you can give good leadership in a situation like Africa, where there are so many things to be done, but with little resources to do them. And so that is one very important characteristic, very, very important area we should ask. Thank God, the God who gave Solomon wisdom, he will grant you wisdom. He will grant our leaders wisdom. Wisdom to think, wisdom to be able to take the right decisions on priorities. Then the spirit of resilience. In a developing country like Nigeria, like Kenya, like Tanzania, and other places that are developing, if leaders don't have resilience, you will give up so easily because there are so many pressures. And so part of what we hope our leaders should have is the spirit of resilience, the ability to bounce back even after failure, never to give up. And then competence, the sheer capacity to get things done. Or courage, the ability to be able to, as it were, take decisions even under pressure. Leaders must be fearless, especially in very, very tough nations. I wouldn't mention them because you know there are tough nations in Africa. Anything you do, somebody somewhere will say it is wrong. You have to have the courage to take the right decisions. And it's extremely important for leaders to have courage. Then you must be focused. You must be focused, especially in a situation where there are so many things to be done. Once the direction is clear, the program is clear, be focused. Don't be diverting your attention here and there, otherwise you achieve nothing. Just be focused. It was Lee Kuan Yew was asked one time, developing Singapore, say, what was the magic? Say, no, we just discovered how to get a few things done properly, and we kept doing them. That's all. Then, of course, the issue of passion. And I thank God that the Lord generates passion for us who are Christians. Because there are so many leaders that are not passionate about anything. They can't stand for anything. They are here today, they are there tomorrow. Even in my own country, some of them will jump from one party to another. I can name some politicians in my own country who have moved from about 4 or 5 parties. They move when things are not good, they'll move from the party to another, from that one to another. But I hear one of them, I wouldn't mention the name. Some of you Nigerians who know, the party that I belong to was in crisis. Some people ran away. Some of us said, no, we're not going to run away. We're going to redeem our party back. God Almighty helped us. We redeemed the party back. Just about a few weeks back, we had a Supreme Court ruling that gave us the party back. And now those who ran away are the first to come. And they want to come to be presidential candidate of this party. I said, not on your lives. That's what they want to do. They don't care. And part of what they always will put in front is that, well, you guys may have the ideas, you may have the ability, you may have the competence, but you don't have money. And so now that is another major factor in our politics. You don't have money. And some of these people I'm talking about, get resources from elsewhere. You know where? To propel them. So, okay, Jerry, you may have all this, but you don't have money. I say, okay, this time around, I may not have the money, but I shall stop you. God will stop you. My prayers will stop you. The people of God will stop you. I'm sure in many of the other countries, because this issue of money is very, very important. Some of them, I don't know how they get this, loads and loads and loads of money. But we've done our study. We don't know some of the areas where they really get this, in order to come and intervene and confuse the whole place. And so those of righteousness are being pushed aside. And those who want to do the other things, are the ones who are really good. And because of the poverty, people can easily be bought. Because of poverty, for little sums. Not only the voter, even those who are in charge of the electoral system. Because people are so poor. So you can see a cycle, a vicious cycle. Only righteousness under God can break it. And I hope that will happen. So, the issue of leaders having vision, very, very clear mental picture of the future you desire for your country, or leaders with perseverance, the capacity to sustain action, just keep going, don't give up. Then the very, very important aspect of strategic thinking. Thank God that the Bible, the Christian faith, has taught us to be thinkers. One of the benefits that the Western civilization has really derived is that the God of the Bible is the one, through his work and so on, encourages us to think. We are not fatalists. He wants us to think. And intellectually develops us to think. And powerfully thinking, leaders must be strategic thinkers. I wish I had the time, because for me, That is a very key thing. To be able to get things done, you have to think. And then the issue of patience and self-control. Now, in addition to these issues, which you may characterize, I usually say the 3 C's of character, capacity, and courage. Leaders in developing situations like Africa must watch their core team. No leader can be stronger than the inner caucus. Watch your core team. If ever God gives you the privilege of being elected to govern in any of our African countries, remember what Jerry Garner told you in Jerusalem. What is the date today? On the 28th of August. Watch your core team. Because, you know, even the Lord Jesus, he prayed for his core team, 12 of them. But one, even after that prayer, serious prayer, selected 12. But one of them betrayed him. The core team is very important. When you get there, may the Lord grant you the wisdom to know who to select. Shouldn't be something, well, I must move on. Then the third area that I want to touch a bit, and when you get my paper, you would see a lot of this in terms of translating the whole of this into a strategy. You must have a strategy. It is not enough to know what to do. You must know how to do it. How do you do it? And many leaders just move in, they will name a number of things. And if there is no strategy, they may start with the wrongest one and leave the most fundamental. So wisdom demands that we have a strategy. What comes first, and what next, and what next, and what connection is extremely important. But I don't have the time to develop that. I think that the process of translating democracy into development by leaders is helped by leaders who are visionary, who have the ability to be able to put together a strategy of getting things done in such a way that they have a package of programs that are translated and done effectively. Fourthly, because I know my time is going and I must conclude. Fourthly, the dynamics of how to get these things done within a setting of a developing country, like most of our nations are developing nations, the politics of governance, the politics of development. Make sure that the leader is accountable. Accountability is very important. And that is why parliaments are important. Every person, because the power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you are not responsible in reporting to somebody, somehow you will soon degenerate. It's very, very important that there must be accountability. The issue of corruption can even be reduced to the barest minimum if there is this transparency and accountability. Then learn to mobilize and organize the people. The Nehemiah strategy is a brilliant one. Mobilize the people, organize the people, get them to do something. A nation that has the land, the labor, some capital, and still importing food has a lot of problems. And this is why when I come into Israel and our friends are here, part of the joy and I'm hoping that this connection with Israel will give to my country, and I hope a number of other countries, is how we can really, as it were, resolve not only to feed ourselves, but to even export. And if Israel, with the kind of land resources we see here, with the kind of water resources that are so minimal, are able to produce, not only to feed themselves, but to export, surely, I think Niger State alone, I come from Niger State in Nigeria, I think Niger State alone is bigger than the nation of Israel. Forgive me, my Israeli brother. With huge water resources, River Niger, River Kaduna, River this, so much. In fact, my first sugar plantation, it was out of that annoyance. A whole river basin just wasting away. And I said, look, and we're importing sugar. 90% of the sugar in Nigeria is imported from Brazil. So I said, now look, how can we show an example it can be done? Because when some of us say, no, you're just academic, you're just intellectual. Therefore, we have to show you sometime by example. And so I went We acquired the land appropriately, the little resources I have, about 16,000 hectares of very good land. Then I got investors, some of them coming from Greece and some from the US. And they now already set up a huge sugarcane plantation, the first of its type in my own part of the country, and a sugar refinery. So people come to me, how did you do it? I say, ideas are powerful. Ideas are powerful if you sustain it. I don't have the money, but God gave me linkage with those who have the money because I have the land, and I have the water, and I have the market. All right? Nigeria is a huge market for sugar. We have the huge land resources, huge water resources. The thing that was lacking was just the financial. And so by the time they came and saw the farm, they said, oh my God, look at the water, look at the land, and they can sell our sugar. They brought in all the money. And so now I'm a sugar plantation owner without a word. Huge. God is able to do it. But I'm moving out of that now. I'm now going to show you an example in another. Rice. Do you know, Nigeria, with all the resources we have, we are importing rice from, let me not name some of the countries. So we said to ourselves, no, we have to grow our rice. We can do it. And so we are in the process of doing that, but there's no time to tell you that story. So you mobilize the people, organize them, use the resources, and then, of course, attraction of investments into the system. Unfortunately, many of our countries, the approval systems for investors to come into a country is what actually ruins the development process. Because you may be able to attract the investors, but the kind of approval system, sometimes it takes so long. The usual settings are not business friendly. I was speaking to one of our dear friends, I think from Botswana, who is here to link up with investors. So we're going to be talking, I'm sure the Lord will link you up with some very good people. But make your country friendly to investors. Investors have choices. They can go elsewhere with their money. And therefore, if you want them to come to your country, you must make it in such a way that they'll be able to get the basic thing they require in the time they require so that they are not frustrated. Ike, my very dear son who introduced me, will know that I don't know why, but I like doing difficult things. When I left government, I went into the power sector because in Nigeria, we have all the fuel system that we can generate electricity, but we don't have power. You know, we have gas, we have oil, we have the sun, solar, we have hydro, every coal, we have coal. So we have all the fuel systems. I said, okay, now, this must be solved. They said, how do we do it? I said, okay, I'll go into it. Say, who are you? How can you do it? I went and obtained licenses because you have to do it by license. You have to be licensed to generate power. And so I went to get big licenses. I didn't go for small ones. I went for the first license was for 1,000 megawatts. Some of my colleagues who were in the cabinet, they said, you are mad. I said, no. Because you see, investors with big money can only come in when it is sizable. If it is just 20 megawatts or so, what are they going to waste their time for? And it has worked. I got the first license 1,000 megawatts, the second one 500 megawatts, so I'm licensed to generate 1,500 megawatts. And now I got the investors because the whole setting was good. The market is there. The licenses are ready. The sources of generating the power in terms of gas is available. And so the only bottleneck is that to bring in that amount of investment, to bring in the power stations, I needed approval. I've been on it for 3 years. Just to get, for someone to say, yes, approved. So part of the problem we are facing is that some corrupt officials are sitting somewhere delaying the approval. And I say, I won't give up. The person that is stopping it, either he would approve or God will move him somewhere else. Someday I'll get the approval. And when I get it, I'll let you know. You will be there when I launch my first power station. You'll be there, you dedicate it. You come, you dedicate it. Because I know you pray. That's the promise. Even you are in South Africa, my first power station, when they license and they get it, be sure you come. You're going to, really, when we're starting it, you're going to pray on that day. And you remind me of the connection with Israel, all right? No, I must run. The next section of my paper deals with the building systems, transformation, but I don't have the time to develop it. Systems. Things are moving in systems. You have to understand the system. If you don't, you'll just be messed up. As a leader, understand the dynamics, what is going on, before you now move. So there's a substantial part of my paper dealing with systems of development and how to really move in so that you cause not just growth, but transformation. Transformation is more qualitative because you transform the qualitative things that are really getting things done. For me, that's a very, very powerful part, how to make sure that we don't just grow, but we transform from within. It's a powerful economist. So there are about 2 or 3 sections of my paper dealing with this process of transformation, not just mere growth. Extremely important, very, very vital. I hope when you get the paper, especially those of you who, by the grace of God, the Lord may be calling into the area of leadership and politics and so on, it's important to know that how do you really, as it were, enter into the center of a system and transform it from within. It's extremely important, and it is possible. 7, the power, what my good friends Anibogo and Adelaja call the power of organized righteousness. We cannot forever be sitting and watching evil. It is not right. It is not proper. You, when you get back to your country, don't say we can't do anything. You can do something about it. Because if nothing else, you can organize to pray and God will lead you to another thing. And before you know it, the whole thing snowballs into something that may cause a transformation. The Lord will grant you understanding. Organized righteousness is the 7th part of my paper, because our politics must be organized to also make sure that evil is fought. Then the final section of my paper deals with the impact of biblical values. History has clearly revealed the unique cultural power of biblical values and principles. The Bible has been, particularly for the West, the intellectual and moral compass, the sacred canopy that gave legitimacy to its values and institutions. We are strongly of the view in this paper that the same values and principles can give a new lease of life to the continent of Africa. We'll draw attention to the fundamental core values revealed in the law given to Moses in Exodus, explained more in Deuteronomy, the servant leadership style of Moses in Exodus, the emphasis on the sanctity of human life and the sacredness of human blood, the emphasis on courage and integrity in Joshua, the emphasis on purity, total devotion, and loyalty displayed in Ruth, the role of wisdom in governance practiced by David and Solomon, the pragmatic strategies of good planning, effective mobilization, and excellent organization taught by Nehemiah, the patience of Job, the excellent emphasis of wisdom, righteousness, and good works, as explained in Psalms and particularly in Proverbs, the fundamental teachings on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, the core values of sound character as contained in Galatians 5:22, that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Let these core values, core character issues, deep down in our lives, drive the politics, the economics, and indeed the nation-building efforts of Africa. Finally, we must go beyond this privilege of linking with the people of God, with a nation loved by God, Israel. We must go beyond the wisdom of connecting with Israel. An excellent nation, they've done so many things in agriculture, in education, in science, and technology, and various other areas. But we must go beyond this linkage to exercise faith in the glorious God of the Bible, who remains awesome in power, almighty in authority, colossal in strength, exalted in wisdom, superlative in vision, superior to all cultures, sovereign in all principalities, supreme in all kingdoms, and glorious in majesty. I thank you for your attention.